Well, good evening. Like yourself, it is my first McGill school, and it won't certainly be my last. There's a very significant lineup of speakers and a tribute to Joe Mulholland that everyone is here. And I suppose, like the saying goes, for another Joe, there's no show like a Joe show. So I'm delighted to be here this evening with my fellow panellists, and I hope I can offer an additional perspective on the economic implications of the upcoming vote on the Lisbon Treaty for the Irish economy. A significant influence on my perspective is my role as Chief Executive of the Rehab Group, an organisation, as you just heard, which spans 4 European Union member states operating in Ireland, England, Scotland, Poland and the Netherlands. We have a turnover now of about 215 million, and we employ more than 3,600 people. And in addition to our geographical spread, Rehab operates in a wide range of industry sectors, including manufacturing, packaging, logistics, waste management, gaming and lotteries, vocational training, employment services, healthcare, rehabilitation, advocacy and health promotion. We actively participate in European-wide organisations in the area of policy development, advocacy and quality. We have permanent NGO status with the United Nations, and as you've already heard, we serve about 56,000 people directly every year. So while it is true that our activities are complex and diverse, our overall mission is simple. It's about investing in people and changing perspectives. And because of all that we are involved in, I'm acutely aware of the benefits which EU membership has delivered throughout the Union across many sectors. I believe that Ireland must ensure that it protects its status within the EU as a progressive and leading state, notwithstanding the economic difficulties that we are currently experiencing. I also believe that a yes vote in the Lisbon Treaty will be both good for Ireland and good for Europe. Since 1973, the European Union has been a catalyst for social cohesion in Ireland. Throughout the 70s, 80s and even the 90s, I think it's fair to say that Ireland took full advantage of every possible benefit of EU membership. Indeed, we became experts in benefiting from EU support. We developed our capital infrastructure, built on our intellectual capacity and developed our commercial and farming interests. We moved from a country which was hugely dependent on one market for exports to an economy that took full advantage of our free and open access to almost 500 million people. As a small island economy on the fringes of Europe, we knew what was good for Ireland, and we worked hard to maintain good relationships with all of our European partners. Respect for Ireland and the quality of our representatives grew, and indeed many current key senior officials in Brussels are Irish. However, Europe is not just about the economy. The EU, as we said, has been a single most important catalyst for social cohesion. The EU has brought about groundbreaking improvements in a number of areas, including at the beginning the lifting of the marriage bar, equal pay, maternity leave, pension protection, equality of access to goods and services, work-life balance and reasonable accommodation for people with disabilities. The European Social Fund also financed the education and training of hundreds of thousands of people in Ireland, many who are here tonight. But despite all that was achieved, our public's enthusiasm for the European project has dipped, and there are many theories as to why this has happened. My own views are that the evolution from an economic union to also a more political and regulatory union became a real cause for concern for many, and the Commission failed to communicate effectively with its citizens. Furthermore, people became concerned about the loss of our national identity, and many verbalised the concern of Brussels telling us what to do. In June 2008, we believed Ireland could stand on its own, and we believed that we were net contributors, and we basked in the glory of our golden time. Perhaps we were becoming victims of our own arrogance, because in the same 4 weeks as we rejected the Lisbon Treaty, we sent a stuffed turkey to represent Ireland in the Eurovision. I believe we as a nation woke up on the morning of the 13th of June 2008 with very mixed feelings. The Lisbon Yes campaign had failed miserably in a cocktail of complacency, arrogance, confusion and real concerns. We knew that this would become a real problem for the country. The reasons for the no vote were many and varied. Of course, some people disagreed strongly with the treaty's provisions, However, others voted no because the messages delivered, both in favour and against, were confused. People didn't know what they were voting for. People believed that the treaty would make changes that, in fact, were never within its remit. And the EU was seen very distant from everyday life, so it didn't really matter. However, things have changed. Today, 13 months on from the day Ireland voted no to Lisbon, our country's economy has altered significantly. Irish people are suffering not only due to the world recession, but also due to our specific economic crisis that we found ourselves in. We are no longer part of a golden era. Every week, thousands of people are losing their jobs as our national debt soars, and we even heard today down in Shannon, 300 more people have lost their jobs. And if we track the changes in the worldwide perception of our economy over the last few decades, the difference is stark. In 1963, Time magazine ran a cover story of Lemass heralding the beginning of economic growth, which read, "Ireland, new spirit in the old sod." We then went on to be consistently used in the international press as a case study of a small economy done good. In March of this year, a fall from grace was proclaimed in a Business Week cover story stating that the Celtic tiger's roar had been reduced to a whimper. And in April, the New York Times ran an article which read, "Éireann go broke." The Economist Country Report has also charted the rise of Ireland over the last 20 years, starting with a cover headline in the 80s, marking the beginnings of our rise, which read, "Poorest of the rich." Our 90s headline was "Europe's Shining Light," heralded our rise, and in 2004 a cover story read, "Luck of the Irish." Now, it will be very interesting indeed to see what the next Economist headline is going to be about us. But while the Lisbon Treaty is not a panacea for economic recovery, its ratification is a very important step on the road to economic recovery. The position that Ireland takes on the second referendum will attract the eyes of the world. A yes vote sends out a clear signal that Ireland is part of Europe. A no vote will raise a big question in the boardrooms across the world where Ireland's future as a safe and profitable place to invest in is being discussed. For our European partners, I believe it's fair to say that a vote for Lisbon is a vote for Europe, pure and simple. In debating the treaty, we should be careful not to make it out to be more than what it is. Lisbon is a complicated corporate governance document. It's not exciting. It doesn't contain any seismic change. It is, in effect, dull but necessary, leading some who describe it to borrow a quote from Churchill and call it a sheep in sheep's clothing. All organisations must have corporate governance reviews and changes that allow them to run as efficiently and as effectively as possible, and this is Europe's. We have now a solemn declaration that addresses many of the concerns of our citizens. Issues relating to taxation policy, the right to life, education, the family, Ireland's traditional policy of military neutrality, and the position relating to the Commissioner have been addressed. As Europeans, we must work our way out of this global recession. Europe will be competing against huge economies which operate as single entities. The changes brought about by the Lisbon Treaty will create a more agile, more competitive Europe. For the good of the Irish economy and all European economies, Europe must maintain its dominant position and continue to move, grow and evolve to stay ahead of the game. This is particularly important in times when Europe is vulnerable to other economies. Indeed, David Miliband, the British Foreign Secretary, recently stated that as China and the US carve up the world between them, we will soon replace the G8 with the G2. It is very clear that we need a strong, flexible Europe that will be able to support its member economies and remain influential as a bloc. Effectiveness in decision-making is essential to enabling the Union to take advantage of the opportunities posed by the upturn, which no doubt will come. And as I said earlier, this is fundamentally about governance. The Lisbon Treaty essentially improves the way Europe works. It also includes some very valuable provisions. For instance, the treaty promotes democracy by increasing the role of national parliaments in EU decision-making. The entry into force of Lisbon would see the Dáil and Shannon having 8 weeks to offer an opinion on new EU legislation. And this would have an effect of promoting debate on European issues in the national arena. And also, the treaty allows 1 million people from a range of member states to submit a proposal for action on an issue to the Commission. In this age of social networking, of Twitter and of flash mobs, This provision enables direct engagement by the citizens of Europe and requires the support of just 0.2% of the European population. It is an interesting new development that strikes at the concept of lack of democracy in Europe and the bureaucrats telling people what to do. I can certainly see the disability sector across Europe mobilising on this one. The treaty also protects our tax base. Low corporation tax has been a vital draw for foreign direct investment, a fundamental requirement of our recovery. The Lisbon Treaty protects this by allowing Member States to retain a veto on taxation policy as well as defence and social security. The guarantees obtained by the Irish Government following the no vote further reinforce the competence of Member States in the area of taxation. The treaty gives the Charter of Fundamental Rights, which recognises civil, political, social and economic rights, a legal status, and the treaty also clearly lays out who is responsible for what in the EU. We've had incredible benefits from being at the core of Europe. I see them every day in our organisation. Prior to membership of the Union, there were very few services for people with disabilities. Within Rehab, a huge amount of our growth was stimulated by European funding. Rehab was the first organisation in Ireland to benefit from European social funding, even before the state did. We built an Irish-based international organisation with the support of the European Union. In fact, European resources have very much supported the development of a vibrant, entrepreneurial, not-for-profit sector in Ireland over the last 40 years. And we've also built up valuable networks and alliances with colleagues across Europe to develop and share best practice in service delivery. As a business, Rehab benefits from EU membership in many ways. For instance, one of our successful businesses, electronic recycling, is a direct result of the WEEE directive requiring manufacturers to recycle electrical goods. Arising from this, Rehab has a successful recycling business with sustainable jobs at market rates for people with disabilities. And by the way, this has had a further benefit of 2,000 high-spec refurbished computers with all the current Microsoft products being provided to date to 1,600 schools at little or no cost. Over the last 5 years alone, with the support of the European Social Fund, National Learning Network, Rehab's Training Employment Division has placed 3,000 people with disabilities in jobs. And this is very, very important because unemployment among people with disabilities is nearly at 70%. We have real diversity in our workforce, with staff bringing their expertise from across Europe, importing cutting-edge techniques and programmes to allow us to deliver best practice and quality in our products and services. And we are spreading the best practice too. In our manufacturing plant in Poland, we're introducing the ethos of our unique, successful, integrated workforce where people with disabilities work side by side with able-bodied colleagues. For Rehab, the continued prosperity of Europe and Ireland is crucial to our future. We are dependent on accessible European markets in order to continue to grow our business for the good of our philanthropic goals. The EU Procurement Directive, whereby specific contracts can be reserved for social enterprises, will, if activated by the government, enable us to compete in other markets and protect jobs for people with disabilities, while at the same time benefiting the country by keeping resources in Ireland. And this is all about the EU tendering. This is where we can keep these projects in Ireland for the benefit of Irish people. A vote for Lisbon is a vote in favour of rebuilding the Irish economy. It's also a confidence vote by the Irish people of Europe. It is an opportunity for us to relaunch Brand Ireland on the world stage as pro-European and pro-recovery. It would be fair to say that the confidence and goodwill of our fellow members may in some places in Europe be temporarily dented, and that we are the topic of much gossip and speculation in the boardrooms and canteens of Europe. But along with all our other recovery measures, in Lisbon too, we now have an opportunity to rebuild the trust which has been central to Ireland's success in Europe. The last Lisbon Treaty referendum became a hotbed for many different and often unrelated issues. The debate generated far more heat than light. This time around, we owe it to the Irish people to declutter the debate. The Lisbon Treaty is about ensuring that the huge tanker that is Europe can change course quickly to overcome the rough seas ahead. It will ensure that Europe is fit for purpose with an effective and responsive structure. Again, it's about governance and management, and I think we need to demystify it and not make it seem more than what it is. The Referendum Commission for the second referendum will ensure that impartial information is provided about the contents of the treaty. And it's quite right that a state should foster a balanced debate and that it fund the provision of clear and impartial information about the treaty. However, it is also necessary to foster fair and balanced coverage in news and current affairs. Unfortunately, by interpreting guidelines for coverage of a referendum as requiring equal airtime for the yes and no sides, rather than a more qualitative measure, the media, while striving to, does not always achieve this equity. And the Coughlin judgment was about equal airtime for uncontested party political broadcasts, not about news and current affairs. And I believe if we do not address this, referenda campaigns could continue to be hijacked by unconnected issues just because they're being opportunistically linked to one side or the other, leaving the general public confused and misguided. This will not serve our democracy well, and thought needs to be given as to how this can be addressed. As a member of the previous Nice 2 campaign, I believe that we once again have a second chance to reaffirm our commitment to the European project. We must do this by providing a strong message on Lisbon. We need to be deferential to the perceptions of the no voters in Lisbon 1 and ensure that we give them enough good, clear reasons to respectfully change their view. So back to the future economic headlines for Ireland. What will the next Economist country report say? Will we be the country of recovery? Will the headlines say Ireland is back? We, all of us, now have a profound responsibility to ensure that our international colleagues will believe that Ireland is a good, sensible and safe place to do business. We must mobilise our innate ability inherited from our forefathers to ensure that every opportunity to do this is grasped, every resource is utilised to its maximum, every goal is achieved, and that we protect and foster our image of the highly educated, diverse, flexible and talented Europeans that we are. Thank you.